My name's Christopher Field. I'm the director of the Department of Global Ecology at the Carnegie Institution for Science, and I'm the co-chair of Working Group 2 of the IPCC. The IPCC plays a really unique role in the international climate change community. Essentially, the IPCC is an effective way for the world's governments and the scientific community to produce a report that's co-owned that addresses the key issues that can provide a foundation for effective action on climate change. For the future, there's a tremendous opportunity to move from a focus primarily on understanding the problem of climate change to understanding details of how that problem unfolds for real people in real places and how solutions can be implemented, and in particular how those solutions can combine mitigation, decreasing the amount of climate change that occurs, adaptation, enabling communities to cope as effectively as possible with the climate changes that can't be avoided, and sustainable development. There's a genuine opportunity for science that stitches together the foundations for solving the climate change problem. We've already seen a very clear set of indications that the negotiators in the UN Framework Convention process are utilizing the most recent reports from the IPCC as the starting point, as the reference point for the science. It's important to recognize that a good agreement on climate change needs to go beyond science. It needs to have components that are related to fairness, components that are related to economics and values, but it also needs components related to science. We're very pleased within the IPCC that our reports can provide this foundation that's in many ways a starting point for a solid agreement at COP21. The IPCC has decided to continue to operate on a 5 to 7 year cycle with the idea that the conclusion of that cycle will be a synthesis report. And one thing it hasn't decided is what sequence of reports should be issued during the period leading up to that synthesis report. And one of the things that I'm optimistic about is that in the future the IPCC will be able to inform the policy process with focused, detailed reports on a more or less continuous basis. I'd love to see something like one report per year on a key topic over the cycle of the next 6 to 7 years. And well, of course, the IPCC reports are quite new. The most recent report was released in November of 2014, and we're still helping the world community understand the implications of that report. But we are seeing dramatic progress. I think we're seeing dramatic progress in 3 areas. One is understanding the regional details of climate change, and especially the relationship between climate change and extreme events. A second key area is a lot of progress in understanding the science of adaptation and how we can learn from experience with adaptation so that in the future adaptation investments can be more targeted and more effective. And then third, I think this broad agenda of solutions-based science is really the bright hope for the future, and IPCC is already beginning to take in information from new science about what's effective in mitigation, how mitigation interacts with adaptation, and how together mitigation and adaptation can be effective when implemented as a part of an agenda of sustainable development. The climate challenge is one that we need to address. What we know is that the sooner we act with great ambition, the less complicated the solution is, the less costly it is, and the less residual impacts we face. One of the things that there's a lot of new science on, it's very compelling new science, is that acting with greater ambition in the near term makes the problem easier to solve. If we wait, we buy ourselves extra complexity, extra expense, and extra impacts. I see a number of pieces increasingly in place that will enable a meaningful agreement at Paris. One piece that's very promising is the ambitious INDCs from many countries, including both developing and developed countries. I think the U.S.-China agreement is really enabling, but I'm seeing encouraging signs from around the world that governments are willing to tackle the core issues, they're willing to tackle them in a serious way, and they're willing to make real investments in first steps toward what may eventually become a comprehensive set of climate change solutions. It's really, really important that the science be a foundation for the policy process. That doesn't mean that the science needs to be confused with the policy process, and I see a richer and richer set of opportunities to explore scientific issues, to answer focused questions on key problems, and to make that information available and understandable to the policy community. I think that's the responsibility of the IPCC. I think it's always been the responsibility of the IPCC, and I think it works best when the line between policy relevant and policy prescriptive is really carefully observed. IPCC is most effective when its reports are focused and policy relevant.